And when you went bad, you cut these guys loose. Your Honor, you had markers inside a phony transport. Your Honor, you doctored the logbook. You coerced the doc.
Consider yourself in contempt.
Colonel Jessup, did you order the code red?
I'm gonna send you up against the best. Yes, sir. You two characters are going to Top Gun. For 5 weeks, you're gonna fly against the best fighter pilots in the world.
You guys really are cowboys.
I am dangerous. And this school is about combat.
You cut these guys loose. Your Honor, you had markers inside a phony transport. Your Honor, you doctored the logbook. You coerced the doc.
Consider yourself in contempt.
Colonel Jessup, did you order the code red?
Hi everyone, thank you once again to this wonderful production by GDM Productions and available and brought to you by Lifestyle TV USA by Dr. Moby, the #1 American professional podcast TV, awarded by Tally Awards and also ranked 53 worldwide by Hollywood Digest, and I'm so honored to have Mr. Ralph Ave here. He is the Chief Master Sergeant of United States of America Air Force, and I'm so honored to have him to tell us about some of these military stories, what's glorified and what's not in the American movie, which I'm so intrigued. You know, a lot of things we have talked about behind the scenes, dissecting about the movies, and I'd like to welcome Ralph without further ado. Ralph is actually the 18th of September 2021 here in Singapore. Would you like to say hi to everyone?
So hi everyone, and thanks for continuing to tune in.
Ralph, for the last episode, it's such a breathtaking episode we had, Ralph. As we listen to some of these reviews coming in, such a breathtaking journey you are giving to us, that you're peeling back the curtain, because you remember, right? We are now in the new digital world. We are bringing media from the people. No more the centralized, controlled media by a centralized government or the TV tycoons, right? Not the TV muggles anymore, but really it's from the people. And I think we have such an important job in our hands. No matter how small our voices are in the crowd of the podcast world, it's going to be out there for infinity in this digital world. And I see myself having this very important purpose, not a mission, but a purpose that drives me to bring stories to the public for infinity. And yourself also have this sense of mission to bring the realness from the ground, away from the glamour of the Hollywood movies. And I think it's important to show the world the American people like yourself, military or not, are made up of sons and daughters of families. They have to leave home, they have to leave their parents, they have to leave their wives or children behind to go out there to be part of a huge mission to keep the world at peace. That is the huge overriding principle that I see what yourself are doing. And of course, it brings a lot of real flesh and blood. And when I see YouTube, the homecoming of the military father, the military wife who comes back after deployment, it's such an emotional moment. And I'm so honored to have you, Ralph, to tell us about all these things that it's from the people, no more from a centralized media, but it's now democratized through the digital world in our hands to bring real stories from the ground like yourself. I'm so honored to have you, Ralph. So that's my intro. And in the last episode, we talked about your deployment as a young military personnel at the DMZ zone, the demilitarized zone from between the North and the South Korea, where it was put in a spotlight because Donald Trump actually crossed that line behind a little hut where you talked about and you described in the last episode. We will start from there and continue from there. Ralph, tell me some of these moving memories that probably is ached in your mind forever, Ralph.
So it's just the camaraderie, right? Anytime you join something, you go through the same crap. Not gonna swear. It brings you closer.
I love that because it's as real as that, because you can't say that word in the real media. But you know, this is a podcast, so tell us the realness of it, Ralph. Give it to us.
No, I'm trying to work on my my language.
No, but we need the realness from you.
Right.
Tell us the 4-letter words.
Okay, I'll try, but I kind of changed my ways a little bit after. So, but no, it's just the stuff you go through. When you go to Korea, back when I was stationed there, we had exercises every month. That way we were prepared for anything that North Korea would do. And this is the reason why the first time you go there, if you go to the DMZ, they make you realize, hey, you're not here to party. You're here because you have a mission. And especially with the A-10s are very popular with, you know, air-to-ground missions. And so it's very vital for us to make sure that we maintain that aircraft, make sure that aircraft was well equipped with weapons, so we could, the pilots could support the ground troops if anything ever happened. Because according to the inventory of the military, the A-10s are one of the most effective for combat air support, besides helicopters. So,
yeah,
and it was an Air Force asset. So we took a lot of pride in that, you know, and a lot of soldiers and Marines, they're like, oh, you worked on the A-10s? Oh, we appreciate you guys, man, because, you know, they save their butts all the time. So it brought a lot of pride. You know, for us, we don't see the front lines because we're back maintaining the aircraft, right? So we don't see the gun shooting, or we're not outside of the wire because we have to be back there taking care of the aircraft. Someone told us that if you're fighting the enemy where you're taking care of the aircraft, your base is pretty much run over. You know, so those guys, you know, the frontline guys, we give a lot of props to them because they're the ones who's protecting us. You know.
Yeah, so, you know, Ralph, it's such a huge task undertaking, because when we watch the movies like Tom Cruise, right, it kind of like glamorizes and the good guys always win. They always come back, which is what the movies are all about. You want the good guys to win, but you know, people do lose their lives, Ralph.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was I believe it's just like in deep down in my head, but there was a couple pilots that we lost. Like, these planes never came back. I don't know. Some of us never figured out why, because we checked all the forms, we checked everything, and everything was intact. So we were like wondering what happened. And, you know, a lot of investigations go through that. They go through the aircraft forms. They drug test. So this is crazy. They drug test everybody's name. Everybody who had a name in that aircraft form will get drug tested and interviewed. Yeah. So, you know, through that investigation. And then sometimes you know, while you're serving, you lose friends that just decide to commit suicide. And you don't realize it. 1 week before they were really happy, and then out of the blue, like, oh, they killed themselves.
Yeah, but
It just-
Ralph, we forget as the world watches the news, and the world watches all the CNN images, right? The CNN images and the Fox News, and we always forget that these are just human beings, the sons and the daughters of any family. They are raised to have a life, right? To have a life that is successful, to have the kind of financial freedom, to buy a house, to have children, and then to see their children grow, right? That's the basic formula of life. But we forget that behind those news that I read myself, as someone who is down here in Singapore, and I represent a lot of viewers, a lot of news readers, a lot of people who just watch CNN. Even those days at Operation Desert Storm, when the planes first went to Iraq, we forget that these are real flesh and blood, and they represent your neighbor. They represent your brother. They represent your classmate out there. And you need this whole symphony, like an orchestra, right? Like what you say, you've got the front lines, you've got the logistics, right? You've got the back end, you've got the paperwork, you've got the doctors, you've got the nurses, you've got the people who are doing all of these big, huge engineering work behind maintaining the system. For what reason? I think no matter what was the cause of it, we're talking about people who really just wanted peace, to keep the world in a very stable, balanced equilibrium so that the rest of the world could continue their lives. And these are people who are made up of you, Ralph, and your colleagues, Ralph.
Yeah, so we all come from different backgrounds, and all of us just wanted to serve our country. And sometimes some of us don't get to finish our contract or finish our career, because of certain situations that certain of us have to go through.
And certain people don't come back, like what you say.
Yeah, and it's tough. Sometimes you have survivor's guilt. I said, my one friend, he went into the Army. I went into the Air Force. We were neighbors in Hawaii. He lived downstairs from me, and we used to play basketball together. We used to hang out.
Yeah.
And then when I got off of active duty and transferring into the reserves, I found out he got blown up by a improvised explosive device, and he died not on the way, but at the medical facility that was there. So he was still alive going there, but he didn't make it. And it was tough just seeing him in that casket in his uniform. It hits you like, why?
Wow.
Why did what was so special about us that we could come back but he couldn't?
Yeah, and that kind of like what you say, survivor's guilt, it's such a painful word to even utter it. It kind of like stays with the rest of the buddies, right? I mean, the buddies who actually did get to live. It's almost like they died for you, kind of in inverted commas. And that could be really painful, Ralph. So did you yourself go through that journey of pain and of loss and of helplessness and of like confusion?
It was all of that.
All of that.
Because that was his second tour. I knew the guy, smart guy, good guy, knew what he was doing. And even with all that knowledge, things happen. And so that was hard. Like, why did I get to come back, but he didn't? or and that it hits you personally when you actually have a relationship with that person. Sometimes you get desensitized, right? Because the music just keeps bringing it on and on and on.
Yeah, sure.
But once it hits you,
like it's so real
because you have a connection to that person, now it's like surreal to you. Wow, this is not good. So you have that guiltiness, it feels. And then other things where my friends retire, and like 2 or 3 years later they pass away. And I'm saying, why didn't they get to enjoy their retirement?
Yeah.
So I went through the same thing they did, but I guess people has their times, like they say, their time to go. But you still have that guilt because like I still get to enjoy my life with my family, and now their family can't enjoy them in their retirement stages. So that part too, you have some kind of survivor's guilt, because why? I went through the same thing with them, but why am I still here and they're not, where their families can't enjoy them?
Yeah, and Ralph, can I say that there's not sufficient support for a person like you, especially in this area of mental health, because you need to reconcile a civilian life versus a military life before. It's such a dramatical difference in the worlds. Did you have that? How long did that journey last? And are you still in that mode sometimes? And is that sufficient support for the military people?
So on active duty, I had a hard time adjusting. It took me a while because I lost purpose. I lost just a sense of direction. Like, well, what's my purpose in life? What am I doing? But in my head, I had mentors and my mom. I kept hearing them in my head saying, keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing, don't quit. So that kind of made me push myself and do it for the guys that were there for you. Don't waste their time who invested time in you. So that's why I just kept pushing. And so I was still going through that process, but I was slowly adjusting to civilian life now that I was doing civilian life and reserves now. And then after I retired from the reserves, coming off from being a chief master sergeant, it's like I lost my purpose again, and I had to find something, and that's what I went to. That's when I went into coaching, coaching basketball, the youth, because it was something that gave me purpose, and at the same time, I could help the youth, kind of mold them into better people through sports. So I've always thought them, our team is not gonna go out there and say that's the enemy. No. If you see that the team, your opponent knocked down, I said, I don't care what uniform they're wearing, you pick them up. That's the kind of team we're gonna be. So I just wanted to build their character. So that kind of gave me that comfort, like, okay, I have a purpose again. And just hearing from the parents, like, hey, my kid improved in their basketball skills, but what I like the most is as a person.
Yeah. And Ralph, may I say that when a person like yourself in the military, you chose to be in military because you wanted to do something much bigger than yourself. You want to live for a purpose. You're a purpose-driven person. So during that time where you are already in the military, you start questioning, what's this purpose? Because you're seeing things that kind of like shouldn't be. Maybe your friends lost their lives. So at that time, you did kind of question. So when you come out of the military, again, you start to have this loss of the big mission, because you have been a person that is a mission-driven person. And I understand people with the mission-driven purpose kind of character, the spirit, because they live for a purpose. They feel that they're living here on earth for a much bigger reason than themselves. That's why they could be in what you are doing, what you do. So now that you're in a civilian situation, like what you say, you suddenly felt like you're jolted out of your zone, because it's like, where's the mission? What am I living for? So you were kind of further jolted out again, and you were trying to find back the reason for living, that, hey, life doesn't just mean this. It must be something much bigger than this. Am I right?
Yeah. The problem with a lot of veterans is they have problems finding that until they get that help, until they realize I'm not alone feeling like this. It's not just me. There's a bunch of us, and we talk amongst each other like, oh yeah, I felt the same way too, man. I'm glad you made it through. It's just a support system, and we tell each other, like, don't be afraid to go see a psychologist or a psychiatrist. It's just gonna help you, because sometimes you just gotta let it out.
Yeah. And Ralph, you actually bring me to this point, because I was thinking so much about your episode previously. Even when I finish an episode, I kind of reflect and I review. I do. Because we want the truth to be out there, and we're dealing with people's lives, people's real stories. And you and I were not doing this because we want to kill time, right? We are really doing this because we feel that there is a purpose in what we do. Ralph, in this part of the world, in Asia, I think I did bring this up to you behind off the air, like my own Pastor Ray Crocker. He was a veteran himself from Vietnam. Sometimes in his sermons, he kind of like pepper it here and there, but he doesn't really put anything to himself. And people like me, being one of the parishioners, we are curious, but we dare not ask, right?
Yeah.
Right. We want to know, like, what goes on behind the scene. It's like a movie, right? But we dare not ask because we ourselves feel small. Well, what position are we to ask someone who's gone to a zone like that? And that's why your job is so important, because you bring light to the lives of people who do not want to shine light on themselves, like Pastor Crocker himself. But I want to bring the point about people, military, retired military personnel like yourself, who have lived a huge mission, because they're part of a huge mission that of peacekeeping for the world, peacekeeping for Taiwan, peacekeeping for Japan, peacekeeping for Korea, peacekeeping in the Middle East, even in this part of the world, in Singapore. And when you kind of like go back to the civilian life, that huge mission kind of like just dissipated in the air. But it kind of brings me to the fact about, in Singapore and in this part of the world, there are quite a few missionaries I do know, like, Pastor Crocker, he is pastoring a church. And we do have like visitors from Philippines, American veterans who are pastoring churches here and there, because I kind of like juxtapose. They are living in such a huge life now in a small way, that because they feel that, hey, this mission of my life, it's much bigger than myself, and they see it from the realm of, I need to continue my mission for people. I need to continue my mission for humanity. And therefore, you see that personification in the life of a pastor like my pastor, Ray Crocker, who has been a pastor for my church for almost about 20 years. And he was a veteran, and then he became a missionary, and he went to South Korea to learn the language, and he was there for I think about 10 years, and just to learn a language, to start a church from scratch. And then he came over to Singapore to continue to lead the small little church. But the mission that people like them, when I see a person like him, it's like, wow, like this person is like a personification of a huge mission that he holds still. An uprighteous person who is there, rain or shine, on the dot, doing his work for the congregation without fail, and never asking for reward. It's like, wow, it's like, that's a huge salute, because I see him as a pastor, right? And then when you dig into him, that he was a veteran, and then you get to kind of like juxtapose, he was a person who lived a huge mission, and now he continues to live an even bigger mission, about saving souls, saving the lives of people. And then I talk to you, and I kind of juxtapose, I kind of see that in a person like herself, and a person like Pastor Crocker, and some of these missionaries who pass through Singapore, who are pastoring their churches in Malaysia, in the Philippines, in Thailand, even in Africa, because we invite them for the missionary month. And then you get to see that their lives are touching the people's lives still. Ralph, it kind of like makes me feel like, wow, these people are there, rain or shine, and not asking for reward, because they're living the lives of a huge mission. And I do see that in what you're talking about, Ralph.
Yeah, it's just the reward is watching the people, how responsive they are. Like for me, with the youth basketball, seeing how much better they got at basketball, and then, but most especially as a person. And that's what I try to teach. And I don't ask for anything. I just love going out there. Between those basketball lines is what makes sense to me, with all this craziness that's going on. Even, with the stuff I went through in the military, sometimes it does give you issues at work, because there are times you have to humble yourself. You were up here at one point, and then now you're a civilian, and now you're back down here. And sometimes you have to humble yourself. But there's like leadership styles that sometimes I'll agree with, sometimes I won't agree with, and that Chief Master Sergeant stuff comes out. And I'm pretty
totally
sure
understand that. I totally understand that. And you know why I brought this up? Because you talked about mission, that sense of mission, that sense of purpose, right? Living for a purpose that's much bigger than yourself. And I do see that, like in the lives of, before I talk to you, I see that in like Pastor Crocker. I see that in the military people who became the veterans who became missionaries, who are now like pastoring the churches, saving souls. I mean, you see a big group of people who are, I should say that they are people who are this, they are almost a Shakespearean character. If you know what I'm trying to say. Yeah. They are the Hamlet of the world. Like they are this whole big, huge mission that's personified is in an individual. And I do see that you yourself with Annette and with some of these veterans that I come to talk to and get to know too. And that makes you or a veteran, number one, quite different from a lot of us who do not live in such huge mission, number one. And number two, it takes a character to be able to do this, like, okay, I'm living for a huge mission than myself. I think I would like to even sacrifice myself to be out there. We're talking about a different breed of people here, if I may say so. It's like a whole group of Shakespearean character out there. And I do understand also the other side of it. When you transit into the civilian life, that huge mission kind of just dissipates or disintegrates. And like yourself, coming back to the civilian life, you kind of feel that, hey, there's this kind of track that couldn't get you back to the track, like the disjointed of the train track, like you're disjointed. Is there sufficient support for people who have such a huge mission in their lives before, and when they transit into the civilian life, there is a huge disjointment?
Yeah, so it depends on the person too, right? If they want to go seek help, or sometimes they're too proud, like, no, I don't need that. And then you're like, no, you do. So it depends on the person. But if the person wants to reach out, then yeah, they can go to the VA, they can talk to their psychologist, psychiatrist. And then there's some work places that do offer these services also. That's, because they understand that a lot of these veterans come back and something's not right. Because, like you said, they come back to a life where it's not normal for them anymore. So it takes adjusting, and it's not like you can bark out orders, because these are civilians.
Bark out orders. Yeah.
So it's a whole. It's something.
It could be quite difficult. Yeah, it could be so difficult. We will hope that we can talk about that and share more in our latest episode. Back to your deployment, the first deployment there at South Korea. Do you have any memories about the buddies who were with you, who stuck with you, or some things that you did would kind of like stick in your mind, stories to tell? Stories to relive.
Oh yeah. Some good, some bad. But
tell us both. So if you have the bad, it means the good is even better.
Yeah, so there was this one time we were all hanging out. We went out to the bars. For some reason, one of the guys we were hanging out with tried to steal a set of sunglasses for somebody. I don't know why they had sunglasses. It was nighttime, right? But he
tried to look cool.
Yeah. And we walked out, me and my other buddy. We didn't know what was going on. And then we had these two guys chasing us. And we're like, what is going on? So one of them got really mad, and he pushed my buddy like in the face like this, just pushed him.
Yeah.
And my buddy just like took a deep breath to, just walk away right now.
Wow.
Right?
Wow. That was close, right?
But he stepped in front of us because he was we were friends. And then what's crazy is he ended up being my supervisor at the end of our tour. But the other guy, he was in the other squadron. But we just all met somehow, some way. And we're looking around. What is going on? Look at that, one of the guys we were with, what did you do? I took his sunglasses. Why did you do that, dude? You dumbass. What are you doing? And so it just, it didn't escalate into fistfights. It could have.
Wow, that was close. That was close. I can't imagine if it had happened. And then you all are there for a mission.
Yeah, it was real close. But then we go onto the base.
Yeah.
And then I pulled him to the side. I said, how stupid can you be? Like, what are you instigating? What are you trying to prove? You could lose your stripes for that, because that's considered stealing. That's considered theft. And we saw those guys that we had issues with. They were coming. They were actually in the same dorms we were in. And I told him, there they are, and they were still talking. They were still talking smack. And I told him, you better go to them right now and fix this.
Wow.
So he went, and then we all started talking about it, and then it's crazy because we all became friends after that.
Yeah.
You know, and that guy used to see me at the gym before all this altercation. And so when I used to go to the gym, now we were saying hi to each other instead of, having this animosity. So that was like one crazy story over there. Another one is I did a bad thing. I wasn't paying attention, and I bent one of the ladders, so the A10 ladders, because one of the bomb lift trucks, one side was higher than the other.
Yep.
And I didn't realize it. And I was wondering why my bomb lift truck wasn't going forward. I looked to my side like, oh man, I bent this ladder, and it's $10,000 damage.
Wow.
So I got a letter of reprimand for that. But because they considered me a good troop, it was less severe if a senior NCO did a letter of reprimand than a commissioned officer. So that was another one. And another one I can remember is we had a late night the night before, and we were part of the end of runway crew, and these A10s, they're not very loud. They're not very loud at all. And we fell asleep. Fell asleep, and these jets are waiting for, we have
wow. Oh my God.
We have to pull the pins to make sure they can release their bombs and their bullets.
And everyone like overslept.
Yeah, we just for some reason we all just usually there's one awake to wake everybody else up.
Yeah.
And then I opened my eyes and I saw two jets just facing us, and I just kicked everybody's chairs. We gotta go. So so those are like the some of the stories I had in Korea when I was stationed there.
Yeah.
But through all of that though, we just, for some reason, you're more tight knit overseas than you are in stateside. I guess because we just have that base in English in common. All right. Once we go off base, it's all foreign language. It's a foreign scenery, and that just made us tighter. Made us tighter because we were in the same situation, and we just had to make the best of it.
It's like your lives are tied, like the common destiny, right?
Yeah. So they say, oh, it's about the mission, but when it really comes down to it, it's about the guy next to you. If you take care of him, he'll take care of you. Wow.
This is such a riveting session that I have with you. I'm just so honored to have you to tell us and to peel the curtain off. Made up of people and men like you. Your father, a son. You say you go back to your mom, and your mom is. I suppose she must be worried. It's the last part of my question before we come back to you. And I can't wait for the next session, Ralph. Tell me, how did your mom feel whenever you leave home? Your mom or your girlfriend, your wife, your social friend, and who are not in the military, when you take off to elsewhere, how do they feel?
So when I was active duty, I was still a bachelor, but my mom, I remember when after Korea, I got stationed in Kadena, Okinawa, Japan, and that's when Iraqi freedom was building up. And my mom she said, oh, tell them that you don't want to go, that you can't go. I said, sorry, Mom, it doesn't work that way. We have to do this mission. If I have orders, I gotta do it. This is what I signed up for. But that civilian mind frame, like you can call in sick.
It doesn't work.
No, I can't do that, or I can't just get out. I promise.
Wow.
6 years of my life to active duty.
Wow.
So I've heard that when I was deployed to Saudi Arabia, that she was always watching the news, and she was always worried. and I heard that she had, she, I don't know if it's true or not, but she would cry every night while I was deployed over there. So,
Wow.
but I made it back.
Salute
fine.
to her, the woman behind the man.
Yeah. Oh, she made me who I am. I'm so thankful for her. Oh, thank God for her.
Yeah. Ralph, we've got already almost an hour with you, which like just zoop past. I can't wait for the next episode to bring more of your military stories to the public, to the rest of the world. You bring that realness, the flesh and the blood. To the news that we watch, because when we read the news, right, in those days, I mean, I don't subscribe to newspapers anymore. In those days, you still have this grayish newspaper that you flip, right? Or
Right.
that you still watch CNN in the past. And you kind of feel that, hey, this is just another statistic. This is just another piece of news. It's nothing to do with my life. Or you kind of like complain, hey, this is going on. But you're really dealing, you're talking about real people like yourself. And I really hope that you come back again. And I really can't wait for that, to tell us about your other deployments that you're sent outstation to Saudi Arabia. Can you kind of like rattle off some of these places that you've been?
So deployments was just mainly it was at Saudi Arabia, and when I went to the reserves, it was just Korea twice a year almost, just because of the threats of North Korea at that time.
At what point were you at the Middle East besides Saudi Arabia? Were you in other places?
I've been blessed that I haven't been. We were on standby a lot of times, but our unit never got called.
Wow.
So,
I don't know what your mom is going to, how she's going to feel if you were like being deployed to like Iraq or Kuwait. That was a time whereby the world is just like watching the news every day. And to know that now that you know that those little people in the screen, they're made of people like you and your comrades. Your comrades, your compatriots, and those little vision that we see on the newspaper, but they're real human beings. They're just not like a piece of paper that we flip on the newspaper. I would love to have you on again, Ralph. Such a moving, riveting episode. And as we dive in, ladies and gentlemen, this is our 4th episode. I really can't imagine like the 5th episode if we're gonna be on our seats. Thank you so much, Ralph. Would you like to wrap up in the next minute or so?
Oh, thanks for having me, Vicky. It's an honor to tell my story. I understand that people are curious about the military. Some people do want to join the military, and I hope that I give them some kind of idea what they're gonna go through. Especially if on the Air Force side, because that's what I can speak on.
Thank you so much, sir, for all your wonderful stories and for reliving those unforgettable experiences, good or bad. I mean, that's the realness of it, right? I mean, like what you say, not everything is like Tom Cruise. And when you speak to the military like yourself, there is this military daring, right? That you say, and now that I see that in a lot of veterans that I get to know myself. So thank you once again. A very riveting, breathtaking episode, and what Mr. Ralph Ave has shared with us. Some of these deployments he's going to talk about, and you were also in Okinawa, right? In Japan before.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think CJ was in Japan before too. Yeah, CJ, she's a military veteran herself, and she was telling me that I can't remember which part of Japan. It could probably be most probably in Okinawa, the base where America is. So thank you once again, Ralph, for what a riveting, breathtaking, and it just blows me away how this whole series is developing. Thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen. Tune in next week.
And when it went bad, you cut these guys loose. Your Honor, you had markers inside a phony trans. Your Honor, you doctored the logbook. You coerced the doctor.
Consider yourself in contempt.
Colonel Jessup, did you order the code red?
I'm gonna send you up against the best. Yes, sir. You two characters are going to Top Gun. For 5 weeks, you're gonna fly against the best fighter pilots in the world.
You guys really are cowboys.
I am dangerous. And this school is about combat.
You cut these guys loose. Your Honor, you had markers inside a phony trans. Your Honor, you doctored the logbook. You coerced the doctor.
Consider yourself in contempt.
Colonel Jessup, did you order the code red?